So, what's really behind the latest UK welfare U-turn? Big changes just dropped, and they could seriously affect your benefits, taxes, and monthly budget. Here's what you need to know fast. Hi everyone, it's Angie here from Money Wisdom with Angie. Today we're diving deep into the government's reversal on PIP and Universal Credit cuts. What it really means for you, how it might impact your future, and what you need to do to protect your finances. At first glance, the headlines look amazing, don't they? Government U-turns on welfare cuts, 50,000 vulnerable people lifted out of poverty, and cuts delayed until after 2030. But here's the honest truth. While this is a relief for many, harder financial times are still on the horizon for millions in the UK, as reflected in press headlines across the country. Reuters write that the U-turn wiped out UK welfare savings and strains the budget of 2025. Analysts now warn that Keir Starmer's welfare backdowns has resulted in shredding the fiscal margin, and the government now faces a major financing gap of its proposed expenditure. As a result, Rachel Reeves must find money from elsewhere, with tax rises expected to fill the gap as reflected in our recent news reports. The Independent states that Starmer must hike taxes to plug the £4.5 billion black hole after welfare U-turn. Starmer cuts, it says, now leave a £4.5 billion hole in public finances. According to economists, this shortfall makes autumn's budget likely to include tax rises or spending cuts elsewhere. Officials are explicitly signalling that tax increases or spending cuts in other areas are now inevitable. I want to make clear to you where the government might find the money to fill the gap. Which new tax policies could affect your wallet, and how you can prepare, not panic, in this shifting financial landscape. So grab that coffee or tea, settle in, and let's get started. So why have the UK tried to cut welfare in the first place? Over the past decade, UK governments have faced massive fiscal pressures. Number one, rising public spending on healthcare, pensions and social care. 2, the economic fallout from the pandemic. 3, the persistent inflation squeezing public sector budgets. So to balance the books, they plan to tighten benefits like PIP and Universal Credit, projecting billions in savings. But these cuts face huge public backlash because they hit vulnerable people hardest. We saw protests, petitions, and charities warning of rising poverty. In response, the government commissioned the Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, and the Fiscal Risks Report to reassess these impacts, and they revealed that the social and economic cost of these cuts might well outweigh the savings. So under intense public and political pressure, the government announced a partial U-turn in 3 moves. Number 1, the planned cuts are delayed until at least 2030. Number 2, it offers protection for thousands facing severe hardship. And 3, with an adjustment of assessment rules to maintain support for many. While this is welcome, the government still need to plug a £10 to £15 billion annual fiscal gap over the coming decade. And they will need to find that money somewhere. The truth? If not welfare cuts, then what? With welfare cuts paused, the government will likely turn to taxes to fill the gap. And here's what to watch closely. Income tax, with silent tax increases through the personal allowance, which may be frozen longer. Inflation will push more of us into higher tax bands, known as fiscal drag. And you may find yourself paying more tax, even if your income hasn't risen. Number 2, national insurance contributions. NIC rates were increased to fund health and social care. While some promises to roll these back have been made, they're being reversed slowly. You might keep paying higher NICs for longer. 3, capital gains tax. Discussions continue about aligning CGT with income tax rates. Tax-free allowances may shrink. And if you have investments, a rental property, or plan to sell assets, your tax bill could well rise. 4, corporation tax. That was increased from 19% to 25% for many businesses, and this can affect wages, dividends and prices, all knock-on effects. Number 5, new or increased taxes. Potential property tax reforms, inheritance tax adjustments, and windfall tax on energy companies. What happens? Prices go up. Another option being quietly discussed is a wealth tax. This would mean taxing individuals not just on income, but on the total value of their assets above a certain threshold, like property, investments, and even pensions. While this could raise significant revenue to fill the fiscal gap, it comes with challenges. Wealthy individuals may move assets abroad to avoid it. Valuing assets accurately can be complex, and it could discourage investments. You see, it's not guaranteed, but it's something to watch closely, especially with growing calls for fairer taxation to protect public services. And all these changes could impact your take-home pay, your investments, and your living costs. There's so many that have knock-on effects, you see, and in the end, it hits our hard-earned income. So how precisely could this impact your finances? Let's make this practical. First, in the short term, the U-turn protects vulnerable groups relying on PIP and Universal Credit, which is good news for many. However, higher taxes and frozen thresholds will quietly reduce your spending power. In the medium term, inflation will continue to squeeze household budgets. Retirees may pay more tax due to frozen allowances, even if pensions don't rise as fast. And investors could see smaller returns after tax on dividends and capital gains, and even on ISAs. And in the long term, if the government fiscal gap widens further, future welfare cuts may return after 2030, or tax rates may rise further to stabilise public finances. This means that taking control of your finances now is more important than ever. Here are 3 case studies to show what this might look like for real people. Meet Liz, a single mum in Manchester on Universal Credit. Now, she was terrified about losing her PIP support, which helps cover extra costs for her disabled child. This U-turn gives her relief, but her part-time job will now probably cross a tax threshold due to frozen allowances if that's what the government decide to do, reducing the benefit of her pay rise. Meet David, a semi-retired plumber. He's living on a mix of state pension and rental income. With proposed CGT changes, If he sells a small flat he owns, he could pay thousands more in tax, cutting into his retirement fund. And meet Sophia and Tom, a young couple in London. Both work and are saving for a house. The stealth income tax increases could well mean their pay packets are smaller, while property prices and bills remain high, slowing their savings progress. You see, understanding these real stories helps us to see how policy changes actually filter down to real people's everyday lives. So what's the political context and elections and why it matters? We know the next UK general election is due by January 2029. But many local and by-elections will influence government priorities before then. Here's what to watch. Look out at the current government balancing fiscal responsibility with voter-friendly promises. Can you believe them? Watch out for opposition parties pushing for higher social spending, tax reforms to make the wealthy pay more, and promises to protect the NHS. Really? And thirdly, the markets, watching how the UK manages its debt without spooking investors. Not easy. Any tax changes or welfare adjustments are therefore likely to be phased in gradually, so voters aren't shocked. But your budget will still feel the impact over time. Staying informed about elections and policy discussions helps you to plan ahead and avoid these surprises. So let's get down to the nitty-gritties of how to protect your finances now. And here are the practical steps you can take. As I said, stay informed. Watch budget updates and policy announcements. Use trusted sources like gov.uk, Money Saving Expert, and Citizens Advice. 2. Review your tax position. Check your tax code annually. Consider salary sacrifice or pension contributions to reduce taxable income. And use ISAs for tax-free savings and investments where possible. Now is an excellent time. 3. Check benefit eligibility. Ensure you're claiming everything you're entitled to as rules change. Look into council tax reductions or discretionary housing payments if you're really struggling, and plan for possible tax rises. If you're planning to sell an asset, monitor any capital gains tax proposals. Investors may want to seek advice on diversifying income streams. 5. Track your spending. With inflation and potential tax increases, small leaks in your budget matter more than ever. Time to tighten your belt, perhaps. Tools like Money Dashboard, YNAB, or even a simple spreadsheet can help you. As I said, not easy, but tighten your belt a little if you can, and do that. Build an emergency fund. Even small, consistent contributions can give you a breathing space if living costs rise unexpectedly. Remember, it's about progress, not perfection, and small steps do add up. Here I am trying to tell you to keep a positive mindset while navigating these uncertain financial times. And it's easy to feel overwhelmed, isn't it, with rising costs, uncertain policies, and fear about the future. But remember, many of us are in the same boat. By staying informed and taking small, consistent actions, you can build resilience. Economic tides shift, but your habits and mindset will carry you through. Focus on what you can control, your spendings, savings, and awareness of what's coming. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you found this realistic dive on UK welfare changes and tax updates helpful, please like this video so more people see it. Subscribe to Money Wisdom with Angie for clear, realistic, but as calm as I can financial advice. And drop your questions below. I read every comment and I answer as many as I can directly or in upcoming videos. And remember, you are not powerless and you are not alone in navigating these changes. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay financially savvy. See you in the next video. Bye for now.